Thank you. We know the hardcore people are from the conference here today, or it's either that or you were with me last night nursing a bottle of water instead of a beer at the bar at the Hard Rock. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We're going to talk today about why you should know your guests better than ever before. And it's something that I feel really passionate about in terms of being able to move our restaurants forwards. Over the last few days, we've heard quite a bit about how profitability is really important and what are some of those marginal gains we can do to get that profitability. But one of the things that we've seen as we've done an F&B report over on the hotel side of things is that personalization and revenue is going to be a real focus for 2025. So today, I'm going to show you why I think that knowing your guest better than ever before is so important. But what I want to do is give you some tangible things to take back to your operations today and tomorrow that can help you put revenue on your top line, which means some of the conversations that we've had this week about profitability are less important because we're driving the bit that counts at the top. So just to give you a bit of context in terms of why, who I am and why we're here today and the experience. So I've been in the industry in September now, 26 years. It doesn't feel as old saying you're 42, and then when you get on stage or you're talking to people and saying you've been in the industry 26 years, you start feeling a bit old. But I started in hotels. I was in luxury hotels for 15 years. Got to a level, I opened 3 hotels in 2 countries. I got to a level of hotel manager, and I had the opportunity to go to general manager, and I just felt it was more like being like a soccer manager in the Premier League than it was being something that could actually make an impact, because these guys, as soon as something doesn't work, they get pushed onto the next role and someone else comes in. The other reason was that I was really passionate about restaurants and bars, and I knew that was where I wanted to go with my career. So I moved out of hotels after 15 years, university degree, and I went to go work in independent restaurants. And I worked for a management company, and I moved to the Middle East, and I had a massive midlife crisis early on in my life. And we went there. I spent 5 years in the Middle East. I worked in Dubai. We ran a management company. With that management company, with that management company, we opened an Auden de Casse restaurant. We had brand representation with China Grill Management, so we opened an Asia de Cuba, a China Grill, in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, and in Bahrain. And we also ran venues within their national sports stadium, which had a soccer stadium for 40,000 people. It had a tennis stadium for 5,000 people. And we looked after all the hospitality and the concessions, of which there was 126 across the whole estate for when we did events. So we had quite a big operation. Halfway through that, we were acquired by an investment business based out of Saudi Arabia. And their model was that they went into young brands, maybe 1 or 2 locations, founder-led. And these guys had reached a capacity with CapEx, with cash, with knowledge and expertise, or they were just ready to scale the business but didn't know how to do it. My role as VP of Operations, we went into those businesses before the acquisition, and we looked at whether those businesses could scale, whether the founders truly wanted to make a change in the business, and whether we could then put that into our operating platforms, of which we had 4 in New York, London, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. So we really looked at that localization piece. And then after acquisition, we went back in with my team, and we implemented all our systems, our procedures, our culture, our standard operating procedures, and we put the foundations in for that business to scale. And then we started putting them out into our operating platforms and opening them. And from there, then we offered franchise support to franchise out. So by the end of our time with the brand, we'd be having restaurants in 4 different countries, and then we'd be anything between 2 to 4 different countries on a franchise basis as well. In 2020, just before COVID, we moved back to the UK. I was COO of the business. By the time I left in 2022, we had 85 restaurants across 16 brands, and we were doing annual revenue of $175 million a year. As COO, I found myself too many times with an investment officer talking about exit strategies, and governance officers talking about how we can keep things in a legal format, because the whole model was that we exit the business and we have a circle and a hamster wheel of brands that we bring in, scale, and exit. What I did at that point there, I realized I'd moved away from operations again, and I wanted to be back doing what I loved, which was making an impact in restaurants and being with creative people and making an impact on the floor. So I set up Auden Hospitality, and now what do we do with Auden? We work with hoteliers primarily on their food and beverage operations. But what we do is we bring the mindset of the 7 years that I worked in independent restaurants, and we bring that mindset to hoteliers to get them to think a little bit differently about hotel food and beverage and get them to think more like restaurateurs. Because in the 7 years I worked in independent restaurants, I realized that independent restaurateurs think in a very different way, and they have to think in a very different way because there's all these different expenses that you don't see on hotel P&Ls that you have to account for in independent restaurants. But I didn't just want to be an F&B consultant because I love operating. So we operate 3 restaurants in London, one of which is in Covent Garden. It's Red Farm, it's a Chinese restaurant which is from New York, it's a brand from New York. So we're operators as well. And what I want to show you today is some of the things that we've put into our managed operations and we've put into our clients from a hotel perspective that's put money into the cash registers and into the tills and has made a difference into our operation without adding people onto the payroll. So I'm going to show you some tangible things that you can do today that's going to be all driven through automation and tech that can help you put money onto your revenue without putting extra people into your headcount and your labour cost. And I think right now when you see the stats, and I've seen stats for the UK, the US, from the back end in hotels and restaurants, we definitely don't want to be adding people into our headcounts and our labour cost. So anything we can do to put money on the bottom line through automation is key. So what's changing at the minute? We're living in a world of curation. If you think about your daily life, if you think about everything that you do, you get the opportunity to curate how you go through life on a daily basis. Think of your Spotify playlists. You're curating what you listen to in your ears every single day. You're creating those playlists. You're creating the Apple podcast lists. You're creating what you want to see. If anyone has a Peloton, and I definitely don't, so I had to look it up, but you can tailor your workout schedules. You can do what you want to do. You can do the exercise workouts that you want to experience. You can pick and choose from a catalogue of things. But where the curation really comes in is every single moment you do something on those platforms that tells the platforms how you want to engage with them. They use their algorithms and they use their systems to keep giving you that content and keep personalizing experience and keep giving the things that you want to see and you want to engage with on a daily basis. But if we look at restaurants, where we're not that great at is getting all that information that we see on a daily basis or we have access to on a daily basis and really helping to use that to curate experience for guests that's going to drive loyalty and is going to drive revenue. So to understand the impact of what we have in front of us, 61% of covers in the US are pre-booked reservations. That means that we know about 61% of people coming into our restaurants on a daily basis before they arrive. Or we have the opportunity to learn about 61% of the people who come into our restaurants before they arrive. As we go through the presentation, you're going to see how important this statistic is moving forwards. And 50% of millennials are now eating out more than 5 times a week. So in some of the restaurants we're operating, we're seeing covers down but spend up. But we're actually seeing our repeat guests increase. And that's driven through a lot of the tangible things which we're going to show you today. 5 times a month. Huge opportunity. And 45% of Gen Z are willing to pay more for an elevated dining experience. When I first saw this statistic, I thought that was upscale restaurants. And the time I was putting this presentation together, I was sat with the director of restaurants from Harrods in London, and we were talking about their restaurants and their curation of their restaurants. And he was actually saying that more people now are going to their own branded cafes and outlets than they are the upscale restaurants because people are going for much more value for money, even in a store like Harrods. So elevated dining experience doesn't mean we're talking about upscale. It means we're doing little things in the experience that make a massive difference to how they perceive the value of the restaurant. And we're going to talk more about that in a bit. So I talked earlier about tech and about curation of playlists and algorithms. And we're living in a digital age. And this digital age is making a massive impact on everything that's happening today in our restaurants and bars and lounges. But out of all of the things that are on here in terms of influencing how our consumers are coming into our restaurants right now, today we're going to focus on the bottom two, because that's the two that I think can have the biggest impact on your operation today. Automation and tech, and how we can use these things to help us generate more revenue without adding people. So how has this influenced our guests? Well, we now value convenience. In fact, if anything, we expect convenience, because everything now is in the palm of our hands, in our smartphones or on our laptop computers, and we can get it. There's a $1.6 trillion business that's made their business today out of convenience. I want something now, or I want something tomorrow, and I don't want to go out and get it. So I go on my app and I find it, and my Prime guy delivers it tomorrow. I have a running joke with my wife that I think she knows the Prime guy who delivers to our house more than she knows me, because I'm sure she gets to see him more than she knows me. So convenience is now at number one in terms of how we engage. So we have to make it convenient for our guests to come and eat and dine with us in the restaurant. And those pre-booked people need to have a seamless experience. It needs to be frictionless, and guests are now demanding ease. If anyone's read the book Building a Brand Story by Donald Miller, he talks in the book about how if you make your guests consume too many calories because you make it too difficult to understand who you are and then to book with you, they just won't book with you, they'll go elsewhere. And that taught me a massive lesson in terms of restaurants about sometimes how we can make processes really clunky because we try to get too much out of people. And in that experience, we then actually have people turning off rather than anything else. I was speaking to a guy on our podcast, Hospitality Huddles, that's going to be released in a couple of weeks. And he's about to bring out a platform for restaurants that integrates in with your reservation system and can see when people are dropping out of the basket and can help you then interact with those people afterwards. And again, if we think about that curation piece, how many times have you gone on to buy something from a retail environment, gone away from the basket, and you've come back to an email afterwards that asks you why and do you want to buy again? That's some of the pieces that we're not getting, and it's some of the pieces that are going to evolve in the space, but this frictionless experience is key. And then second of all, it's experience. Through curation and through personalization, we're able to have a much stronger experience in the places that we visit because people know us. So experience is now above all else. I shared a stat yesterday that talked about how 52% of people now booking hotels are doing it because of experience and authenticity. So if it's driving people into our hotels, it's also driving people into our restaurants. And above all else, the details count. The details that you can put into an experience make such a difference to the guest, and we're going to learn about that in a short while. And then personalization. Understanding what makes them tick, because the little things matter. As a follow-on from the details count, the little things matter. This isn't like big audacious gestures. Sometimes just the little things in a experience can add up and can make a massive impact. And then the statistic that came from 7 Rooms in a recent consumer survey about the US said that 30% restaurants see a 30% increase when they offer a personalized experience. So by putting some of this personalization in that we're going to talk about soon, you have a 30% chance of increasing revenue. So if I sat in some of the talks earlier in the week that talked about profitability and they were talking about managing costs and things like that, and they turned around and said, by doing absolutely nothing apart from introducing personalization into your business, you can put 30% onto your top line. It's far easier than cutting 1 or 2 people from headcount and trying to really drive cost on purchase. And you'll see as we go through the presentation, it's a really simple process to do this. And then finally, recognition. We all have an ego somewhere. No matter how humble we try and say we are, we've got an ego. When you walk into somewhere and someone acknowledges you by name, that ego starts going inside, and it starts getting adrenaline going, and it starts getting the dopamine going. We like it. We like recognition. And the new generation want to see recognition and want to be thanked for their loyalty. We're staying in the Emily Morgan Hotel in the Doubletree in town. And I'm a Brit, right? So when I wake up in the morning, I like my tea. And I rung up on room service with jet lag at 6:30 in the morning on Monday. I asked them for a tea. I woke up yesterday with jet lag, rung up room service, and the first thing I said to them was, "Can I order some room service, please?" She said, "Mr. Turner, would you like your tea that you had from yesterday?" And straight away, that dopamine, that ego, it was like, yeah, all right, I'll take it. I already wanted it anyway, but there was no way I was going to say no this morning because of that. That recognition, that personalization makes people feel good. And then data-driven engagement is key. How do we create loyalty? Because loyal fans spend more and come more often, and market your restaurant for free to others. So how can we use the data that we're going to bring through some of the techniques that we're going to show in a minute to create loyalty and start personalizing visits and start recognizing the frequency of those people coming in? 72% of diners being more likely to book a restaurant where personalized promotions and recommendations are offered. It's going to be a nice segue into why personalization is so key in restaurants today. So how has this influenced our guests? They now expect convenience, value experience, want personalization, and crave recognition. So now, if anyone follows me on LinkedIn, you'll know I beat this drum all the time. But now it's time to think differently. It's time to look at what we're doing, challenge what we're doing, and think in a different way. Because now, more than ever, it's time to really know our guests and find the ways to use that to make a difference in our business. So the way we're going to do it is through profiling. We're going to start building profiles on our guests. We're going to start building encyclopedias on our guests. But what is profiling? In its simplest form, and this sounds a bit scary, but in its simplest form, it's the recording and analysis of a person's behavioral characteristics. In essence, everything that they do when they come into our restaurants and bars, everything they do before and everything they do after, we write down and we put it into an encyclopedia, and we're going to use that as our superpower for our restaurant moving forwards. And what does profiling mean in a restaurant? Collecting guest preferences is number one. How can we personalize their experience? By understanding what they want from their experience. And then when they come into the restaurant, recording their habits so that the next time they come to our restaurant, we can put this with the guest preferences and we can really start making a difference to their experience. And then finally, finding a way to segment that information, because not everyone's the same and we want to personalize experience. So we have to understand how to segment that so that then we can share the right information with the right people and we can communicate and engage with them effectively. And if we don't do this, if we don't profile and we don't start looking at how we can really understand our guests, and if we keep doing what we've always done, fundamentally we're going to let people walk out of our doors without being engaged, without coming back. We're going to leave revenue on the table, but more importantly, we're going to have to spend more cash on acquisition than bringing those people back again because we're focusing on retention. And that makes a huge difference. So we want to spend some time now on how to profile like a pro. What are some of the ways we can do this that are tangible, that you can take back to your business and you can put into your operation and you can start profiling so that we can start doing all those nice things afterwards? First of all, it's the why. We tag. we incorporate a system of tagging into our business. If anyone use 7 rooms or open table right now in restaurants? There's ways in there where you can tag guests, and you can build tagging into automation for when they're coming into your restaurant. This tagging is going to allow you to start personalizing communication. The easiest way to do it is when we're asking about allergens, we're asking about special occasions, we're asking about are they first-time diners, are they repeat diners? We have all these tags into the system that means we can now start tailoring their experience to the person that they are and the number of times they've come to our restaurant. So that's the why. Why are they coming to our restaurant? And let's make sure we put that into the system and make sure we understand what the reason is. And then number 2 is the what. And we do this through integration. And the what is, what are they doing in our restaurant? Now, the easiest way to do this is to integrate your POS systems into your reservation systems so that when Mr. Smith comes into the restaurant, you've already tagged him because you've gone through the process and the reservation process. And then when he starts eating and drinking in the restaurant, that data starts flowing into our reservation system that then flows into our CRM system that now gives us the ability to really start personalizing not only the experience in the restaurant, but the communication before the restaurant visit, after the restaurant visit, and months down the line when we want to talk to them about special events, special things that are going on, birthdays that are happening. That data is so useful. If someone comes into the restaurant 5 times, they have the same bottle of wine 5 times. By putting that information into your reservation system, no longer does your waitress or waiter have to go to the table and ask them what they'd like to drink. They can go to the table and ask the guest, would you like to drink the Cabernet Sauvignon again that you've drunk the last 5 times? We already have the bottle waiting. When you do that, you hit that personalization, you hit that recognition, you get the dopamine going, you get the ego going. Those people want to come back again and again and again because they feel valued and they feel special. So integration is the what. And the third one is the who. This is the capture. So when someone makes a reservation for 4 people, they make it under one name. So the only details you have in your restaurant is the one person that's made the booking through the booking widget or when they've called the restaurant. But that's not everyone who's coming and engaging in your restaurant. So what we've done in our restaurants in London is we've built wireless, social, and social Wi-Fi into our systems. When someone comes into our restaurant and wants to use the Wi-Fi, they have to go through a system where they have to put their email address in, and they have to give us their birthday details, they have to give us their email address, and we ask them to opt in. We do this through a system that is video first. So when they first open it up, it's a 4-second video that sets the scene. It's the woks setting on fire because people love seeing things on fire, right? Like they love seeing wood-fired ovens. They love seeing barbecue grills. So when we have the woks, it's there, and then it goes in. We now capture all the information of those people coming into our business. I looked at the stats before we came out to the US the other day, and in our restaurant in Covent Garden, we're capturing 82% of covers in our restaurant through our social Wi-Fi. 82% of covers through social Wi-Fi. So we're now getting all that information into our system that we can now talk to them because they might have come with a boss, they might have come with a friend. There's no way of us to talk to them until now. So really look at how you can use some of the ways that you can manipulate guest experience and what guests need in your restaurant to really start helping you get that information. So who is coming into your restaurant, and are you being able to capture every single one of them? And then the final one is the how. This is the bit that means you don't need to add labor to start profiling guests, to start looking up guest history, to start looking at what these guys are doing. It means you don't have to rely on the server to go tell the hostess to put the preference into the reservation system when you've got 100 people in your restaurant and everyone's wanting something. It's the way that you can automate. That comes through the integration. But what this also means is that when you go through the whole journey, you can automate the process, because now, as we've seen before, the bit before they come to your restaurant and the bit after they come to your restaurant is just as important as the bit when they're in your restaurant. So how do you automate the communication before? So when everyone sends the confirmation email, how do you build into that more calls to action? So when we do that in our restaurant in London, we have upgrades and calls to action in our confirmation emails. We have upsell opportunities that we build in that offers them to enhance their experience, but also means we can start personalizing that experience when they come in. And then afterwards, we always make sure that we send an automatic email. I don't know if you've ever got an email from a restaurant that sits on 7 rooms, but you get the restaurant, you get the link afterwards. So the email comes in after. It's the restaurant manager. Thank you very much for coming to our restaurant. We really value your custom. If you go through my personal link and make a booking next time, I'm going to personally make sure you're looked after. The first time I saw that, I was like, wow, I've been to this restaurant for the first time. The restaurant manager wants me to use his personal link. I thought it was amazing. Until I realized it was an automation from 7 rooms, and I was like, okay, fair play, you know. But doing this automation and having it put into the integration with the POS system means that when we send that personal link out, we're starting to see what revenue that link is generating. That's where it becomes really powerful. Not only do we do that afterwards, but we also automate when people cancel. So when people cancel in our restaurants, 12 hours after they cancel, we send them an email saying, we're really sorry you had to cancel, these things happen, we understand, but don't forget about us and come back. When you come back, there's a free drink on us for booking. We send that out 12 hours after. We're currently making $4,000 a month just off that email alone in our restaurant in Covent Garden, which doesn't sound a lot, but if you annualize it, it's quite a lot. We do no work for that email whatsoever. It's all automated. We do it on cancellations, we do it on no-shows. No-shows don't produce as much, but we still get some revenue from it. We have it automated for first-time guests, we have it automated for regular guests. If someone hasn't been to the restaurant for 90 days, we send them an email. It's all automated. Someone hasn't been for 120 days, we send them an email. Everything's automated. Our hostess team, our reception team, our management team don't need to worry about that automation because it just happens in the background. And that's how we'd use the personalization. We use the emails to really start driving revenue to the top line without needing people in there. You can do that on Open Table, you can do that on Resi, you can do that on 7 rooms. So it's a really important thing to look at how you can automate your business and automate your process to really help. 59% of loyal guests are more likely to choose a brand over competitors and make weekly purchases. So if no one understood the value of personalization and recognition before, this stat to me is a huge one that can help go back today and look at how you can implement that in your business. 59% of people. And out of those 59% of people who come back, the statistic after that is they spend 67% more than first-time guests. So not only are they the most frequent guests, but the highest spenders of guests as well. Which, back to that point of retention over acquisition, is going to put cash on the bottom line. That's the stat that backs all of that up. So how do we win? We've got the why, we've got the process, and now how can we use those in the restaurant to make a difference? Simple acts of kindness. We're now building up a profile on people that tells us what they like, what they enjoy, how they come to our restaurant, and how they experience our restaurant. If we embed a simple acts of kindness into that and we use that data to help personalize that act of kindness, that can have a huge impact on that loyalty and that engagement with your brand. And this doesn't always mean giving away things for free. We just did a bakery brand for a large hotel group that are wanting to scale the brand to 100 locations. And we put forward a service ritual which was called the Art of Generosity. When we put it forward, their initial thing was, we're going to give everything away for free. And if we times that over 100 locations and add it up what that value is, it's going to be a huge amount every year. And we sat there and was like, it doesn't always mean you have to give away things for free. Sometimes it could be a really simple gesture in a note that goes with a bill folder that's personalized to that guest based on the profile that you've built up that can make such a difference to that person. It's back to going on that personalization, that recognition, that dopamine and that ego. And now you've got the data coming in where you know how many times these people have been in your restaurant, and you know who are the big spenders and who are the most frequent ones and who are the guys who you need to recognize the most. It's sacrilege if you don't make that ego trip start working in their system inside, because you have the information. So recognize repeat guests and recognize them again and again and again. And celebrate special occasions. Every reservation system can capture birthdays. It's the easiest thing to do tomorrow is to go back and put a birthday program into your restaurant. The way we do it in our restaurants, we have a pop-up on the website. As soon as you log on, it pops up and asks you to put in your birthday, and we'll give you a gift on your birthday. When you book in any of our restaurants on the booking widget, we ask you your birthday. And then we have an automation running through our system that 10 days before the start of the month, we email every single person that has a birthday that month, and we invite them into the restaurant and we offer them a free drink for the birthday person when they come in the restaurant. The reason we do that is generally when people are booking birthdays and people are booking special occasions, it's bigger tables, higher average check, they drink more. So these guys are the highest spenders in your business, and you have that information in your system ready to go today that can make a change. And because we're doing it through our reservation system, that's our CRM system, because we have it linked to our EPOS, we can track how valuable that automation is to our business, because we see the data through the average check and the spend and the total revenue. So we can really start looking and playing and seeing if what we're doing through those automations and what we're doing through our free gift is actually driving engagement and driving covers into the restaurant. If it doesn't drive covers into our restaurant, we start tweaking and we start A/B testing and we start playing to see what is the thing that's going to drive people the most. Because that's the value of what we can do by profiling our guests properly and starting to use that data and that information that comes through. And then personalized communications. I don't know about you, but my inbox probably gets 75 to 100 spam emails a day. Like, it's hard to keep on top of them sometimes. So we get all this information. So if we don't personalize the communication from our restaurant, we'll be one of the ones that gets unsubscribed and people turn off from. So we have to use all this information that we're picking up in our system through our tagging, through our automation, through our EPOS, to really start personalizing that communication that we're doing after the experience. So this is way after they've been. This is when we want them to come back. This is when we think we've got something that they're going to want to buy. We use that to personalize. So if a guy's been coming in and he always drinks red wine, he's probably not going to go for your white wine dinner that you're doing with your supplier. So don't spam him by sending him the white wine. But in the other way, what you can also do, and it's something that we do quite regularly, is if we have guests only coming in for lunch, every 3 to 4 months we'll send an email out to the guests and we'll say, we know you always come in for lunch and we really value that you're coming in for lunch. How about trying dinner? But because we personalize the email with the bit at the start that tells them that we understand who they are and what they do and how they interact with our restaurant, we're personalizing the experience so that those guys aren't just looking at it going, they're trying to make a bit more cash out of us, or they don't understand us. I only ever come for lunch, I don't come for dinner. So even if they don't want the offer that you're giving them, at least they understand why you've done it and that you recognize what their value is to your business. Personalization is key. And then use data to drive decisions. This is where we go back to testing everything that we do, and why I believe the POS system linked up to your reservation system is probably one of the most important integrations in your business. Because by doing that, by understanding the spend, by understanding the revenue that it's bringing to your business, you can start making more affirmed decisions about what you're going to send. You're going to start seeing what's working when you're sending communications out to your guests more than ever before because you've got that data at your fingertips. If you don't have that data at your fingertips, all you're using it on is click rate and open rate when people get your emails. What you really want to know is, what is your click rate? What's your open rate? How many people are going through to your website to book? How many people are booking from that email? But then how many people, when they come in, are then spending, and what's the average check? Because then when you start looking at your personalized communications, you start understanding which offers and which emails are working the best. You can double down on the ones that aren't. You can bin the ones that you can double down on the ones that are working well. You can bin the ones that aren't, and you can start looking at other ones to replace. But that data in your fingertips is much more important than open rate and click rate. And then finally, all of this should be helping you to build a tribe. It should be helping you to build a community, and it should be helping you to build loyal, repeat guests. Because focusing on repeat guests, as I've said before, is far cheaper than focusing on new guests. Retention over acquisition every single time. So build a tribe, start doing loyal fans, start building raving fans, start getting people who will be your free marketeers going to tell others. And out of everything that we've looked at today, there's lots in there, and we've looked at this process over probably an 18-month period as we've been working with this particular restaurant in Covent Garden. But my advice would be to start small, but start today. And really start looking at how you can integrate some of these things into your business. If I was going to look at the two that I would start looking at first, I would go away today and I'd ring your POS company, I'd ring your reservations company and ask them if they talk to each other. Most Lightspeed, Toast, Micros, all go into 7 Rooms, all go into Open Table, all go into Resi. That's where I would start. That data is a superpower. The second one is automation. Because that automation is what's going to get you the success, and it's what's going to get you the data in the system. Because if you leave it to your people, it's going to take far longer to get that culture bedded into your business than if you can automate those processes instead. And the success that comes from this is engaged guests, higher revenue, and community driven. So we talked about the new generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, that are now the biggest consumers that are coming into our restaurant and bars. These are the ones that have grown up in this digital age that's made such an impact. They value personalization. It's the thing that they want the most. And they demand experience from that. They expect you to know about them. They expect you to understand them. And they expect you to use that to enhance their experience in your restaurant. And above all else, they crave convenience because it's something that we do every single day, and life is easy. Life is easy because of the smartphone and the convenience that we have by having that in our hands that comes from it. So we're going to go into a Q&A in just a minute. If anyone has any questions, not necessarily just about this, but about restaurants, happy to answer. But this is my call to action to you. 3 things to go away with from today. The first one is to evaluate. Go back to your business and look at what of these things you have in your business and what are the things that you could switch on today and what are the things that you might be able to switch on in future, and create a plan around it. I'm going to put a QR code up on the screen in a minute. It'll get you my LinkedIn profile. If anyone wants these slides, send me a message. Let me know you're in the audience and I'll send you the slides over so you can see them and digest. The second one is train your people. Because as much as we can automate and bring things into the business that can make life easier, unless there's a real culture of how we use that data and how we use those systems in your business, it's going to fall away. So really look at how you can train your people and get that embedded into your business so that they can understand the power of profiling moving forwards. And then if you don't have the right tech in your business, that is a key investment that's going to help you generate more revenue, that's going to bring that profitability into a much better place. 3 things to profile properly. A POS system, a reservation system. The reservation systems now have CRM, so you can incorporate it into one. And the wireless social. Made a huge impact on the amount of people that we have in our database that we can talk to. 3 things to profile properly. and it's time to think differently. So we're going to go to a Q&A, but if anyone wants the slides, scan the QR code. It takes you through to my LinkedIn profile. I can send them through to you. And if anyone's got any questions about this or anything else with restaurants, happy to answer. Here you go. Hi.
Hi, I had a question about the personalized communication. Other than connecting, the reservation apps through your point of sale system, is there any other recommendations you would give about personalized communication and getting that data of what your guests are enjoying and being able to communicate those?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing that we do when we embed the profiling thing into the business through the automations, and we're constantly looking, is we're also doing that in pre-shift briefings with the team. So one of the things that we found effective in terms of bedding that culture in, was back to the training, was in the pre-shift meeting, we talk about the guests and we talk about the preferences. So we go through the pre-booked and we look at what is coming up on the profile. And what that's done is it's been able to embed a real culture into the business, whereby if the waiters are overhearing things or talking to guests and experiencing with guests, we start tagging it in. Like, for example, in some of our hotel restaurants, we tag whether they're in-house or external, because then that helps us not get confused with communication on that respect. But in the Covent Garden, it's heavily tourists. So I'd probably say 60% of our business is transient tourism. We tag that into our reservation system so that we're not kind of spamming people elsewhere, and we're tracking year on year. Other things that we do, so when it's Christmas and we've got all the groups coming in, we use those groups data to then send it out in September for like early bird offers and things like that. So we really start using all of it through the culture in the business to just keep building it. But the reservation system, CRM system, is always the bit that is where everything gets consolidated, which is why I think it's so important. But yeah, everywhere where we have a touch point, we bring it into the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Go easy.
So obviously AI is really jumping in there, and you can get a message that says, Steve, this is Steve reaching out to you, and it's a fictitious person. Can you talk about how to integrate the data and things you receive through reservation systems and things, and how to more personalize that during the dining experience? For instance, there are times where a manager isn't present on the floor. We eat at restaurants and we never see a manager. What's their role during the shift? Where are they to be? And then also, Danny Meyer talks a lot about going fishing and asking questions of the guests. So if you don't have data on that guest already, how you ask questions, and then how you take that information and bring it to the host to put in the system, so that if somebody knows that, hey, this guy drinks a $200 bottle of wine, it tells the next server that they're willing to spend the money. So what is the manager's role in that? How do we get new information from the server into the system? And I think that's, those two questions.
It's interesting actually that you talk about AI bots, because we're looking at chatbot for the restaurant in Covent Garden, because we get a huge amount of traffic to our website. And we get a huge amount of traffic, really interestingly, through the telephone as well, which in our other two restaurants, the telephone's almost redundant now. But in the Covent Garden one, it's still active. It's really strange. We're looking at chatbots to take away the simple questions. So what are the opening times? Can you send us the most recent menu? Can you do reservations online for 6 or more? And we're trying to take some of those simple questions out so that we're not getting as many emails into the email boxes and phone calls through the telephone system. And it's what we're seeing in, if I ring my cell company, I get a bot first that tries to help me, and then I go through to an agent. So I think there's a place for bots from that perspective. That means we're going to put more people back on the floor. The second one then on the profiling is, what we've done is we use Lightspeed. So everything's on a tablet. So our EPOS is on a tablet. So we have 7 rooms loaded on. We use 7 rooms. It's not a plug for 7 rooms. We use Open Table in different restaurants as well. But in this particular restaurant, it's a lot of bookings through our website. So 7 rooms makes more sense. We have 7 rooms on there as well. So we actually challenge the waiters and the waitresses to put the profile into the system themselves, rather than going to a hostess or a manager, because they can just flick through the 2 apps. So we've bedded that into the business rather than the trying to tell, because it just didn't work. They were too busy. It does 200, 250 covers a day, too busy. Like, they just kept forgetting. So it was like, put things in the POS, straight from the POS going to the reservation system. We've built the tags, and what we always do is we always go in every single week and we make sure the tags are updated. So if we get new things that guests are telling us, we add a tag into the system, and we really make it really easy for them to just go in and just tag as we go. And we've found that as the best way to get the engagement from the team. Make it easy.
And then manager floor presence.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know I beat this drum, right? It's the thing that makes me sad the most about restaurants right now, especially what I see in hotels. Is the admin just bogs people down, and we don't have managers on floors. And that's two things. We don't have managers on floors like the old school way, going around and touching tables and checking guests are happy and all the rest of it. We don't have managers supporting the teams. So then the teams are getting overwhelmed, they're under pressure, they don't have people to lean on, they don't have people to mentor them, they don't have people to coach them. And I think we're seeing it a lot in the UK. The manager's not on the floor is having a massive difference on businesses. We've taken pretty much every process out of the business, so our GMs can be on the floor. It's a standalone restaurant, the owner's in Dubai. We offer support, but we've done whatever we can to get all the end of days, all the reporting, all the financial stuff. We don't take cash, so everything's just integrated in with the credit card systems. We've tried to take all the process out. That means that our GMs can be on the floor with the guests and with the teams, which is where they're going to make the money. And we've not seen an impact in food cost. We've not seen an impact in labour cost. We've not seen any of that. If anything, we've got more engaged GMs and we're making more revenue because of it. So I'm a huge believer in people on the floor and take out this admin and process that we've seemed to create.
I run a restaurant that's more of a fast casual than, we take reservations, but it's usually for like groups of 10 or more. I have a large space to hold large parties, or the tables can be moved around to just house a few people. What would be a good platform? I know that I've used OpenTable and I've used Toast and stuff like that, but that's usually for, reservations and stuff where it is. What about a smaller scale type of platform that would be able to integrate into more of a fast casual type?
Yeah, so we ran Dominic Ansel Bakery in London. We ran By Chloe in London as well. We were doing around $50,000 a week in revenue in the By Chloe's in London. We did two things. The wireless social was really valuable to us because it meant we were getting the data through, and then we were just plugging it into a normal CRM system, but having the segment in the same way by questions on the wireless social. But I tell you what we did in QSR, which had a massive impact for us, is we really focused on taking the data from the POS system and looking at which employees had the best average check, the best transaction check value. And what we did was we looked at our peak hours, and we looked at the people who made the most money through the checks, through upsells and what have you. And we started strategically using the roster to put the people who made the most money at the best times of the day to start increasing average check. So that's what we found or we've done in QSR previously to really start trying to see the uplift in that. The other thing that we've done as well, so it's back to using a basic CRM system, but the other thing we did as well, I'm sure you probably got lots of delivery revenue being a QSR. We started trying to put QR codes and stickers onto the delivery bags and the delivery stuff that was going out that got people to sign up and get those people onto our database. We'd use it through bounce backs, we'd use it through discounts and special offers to try and get that into our database so that we started owning the data and not Uber Eats and DoorDash and people like that. Yeah. And then we started at least trying to communicate with them to get them into our restaurants when they were in town to come through, rather than just using DoorDash all the time and paying the commissions. So we just tried to use almost old school guerrilla marketing to try and drive people into the CRM system. But I think I'd look at a simple CRM system that can, as long as it can segment, and as long as you can start splitting things off so you're not kind of talking to people in a general way, as we talked about before, I think a simple CRM is a good place to start.
So I guess, would it be best to like go through my internet provider that I get through my Wi-Fi to see which kind of which CRM kind of they would work with to be able to capture
Exactly.
their email addresses to sign in,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then filter that into.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
and filter that through. Yeah, and then as long as it's tagged up so that if it's a delivery QR code, that makes sure that it goes into a segment where it's like delivery people because the QR code's set up right, or from the store. Wherever you've got those touch points, as long as it's telling you where those touch points are coming from, it's starting to like segment the data so you can start personalizing the experience.
Yeah,
that
we
make sense?
try to do it that way because we don't
Yeah, yeah.
deliver. We don't team up with DoorDash
Fine,
or
and
anything
you do
like
your own
that. We're
delivery.
more of a dine-in experience.
Okay.
We have a large selection of draft and beers and stuff. We
Fine.
want people to come in.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to find a way to capture emails so I can reach back out to them and have them come back, birthdays or celebrations.
Yeah.
We have room for large parties for like, graduations and company parties.
Yeah, so if it's direct bookings, I'd be looking at something like Resi or 7 Rooms, because those guys have CRM built in. So if you've got incoming reservations that you can drive through your website, they're usually better than the cover charge ones such as OpenTable and things like that.
Okay.
But then the wireless social, so the system we use that's also in the US is called Captive Wi-Fi. That's the one that got us the 82% of sign-ups of everyone in
Captive Wi-Fi?
Captive Wi-Fi.
Captive Wi-Fi, okay.
They're in the US. They work with Zoomer over here, a couple of other brands as well. But that in QSR, where you've got people just coming in that's not necessarily pre-booked as well, that's the bit where we really started capturing guests, and it's not that expensive at all.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem. Is that it? Perfect. Well, as I said, there's the QR code just on there. If anyone wants the slides, feel free to get in touch. Happy to send those over. And thank you very much for coming out at 9 o'clock after the parties last night to listen to a guy from England talk about personalisation and profiling. Have a great day.